everyone. Welcome to the 5DB Canteen. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope you've all enjoyed your Vietnamese rice bowl, as requested by St. Barbe. Now, if you could all please help me in a very, very warm welcome for the wonderfully talented St. Barbe.
talk now, but I realise I've got to tune because it's cold and my guitar's not liking the change in temperature. But I've also realised I can't talk and tune because I've got to hold this, and that just occurred to me. So I'm going to put this down, awkward silence while I tune, and then we'll carry on. Thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. How was the food? Pretty good, right? I think we should have a round of applause for Steve and the whole kitchen team here at 5DB. I think that these guys, they are the true stars of the show. What we're doing here is kind of like dinner jazz, I guess you call that, background dinner jazz type thing. Some people don't seem to agree that that's like what we're going for, but we're getting there. It's getting closer to that. That's all we've ever wanted to do, dinner jazz. But yeah. You just heard 2 singles we released last year. The first of which was called Numina, and the second, yes, there's a fan over there. Thank you, Drew. I actually told Drew to do that before. I said, when I say a tune name, can you just whoop? So it seems like, thank you, Drew. Numina, and then we did Telecherry. Both of those you can find in the usual places on streaming services. We're going to continue now with an unreleased tune called Dorothy. Once I've checked my tuning again, because I'm worried about it. right, well, thank you very much again for all coming. We've had a really good time. Massive thank you to everyone at 5DB, Gus, Ale, Javier, Danny. I'm not going to be able to name everyone. I've just done that. Everybody, you know who you are. It's made a huge difference having such amazing gear, amazing sound, and nice people. So thank you. Let's have a round of applause for everybody involved in the live stream. We're going to finish with a tune of our first EP called Petrichor. Thank you, Drew. Rank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Edwin Island on the bass. Floyer Sydenham on the drums. And Ableton, you press play on the backing tracks. My name's James. Thank you for coming. We're going to hang around, so stick around for a chat. Oh, dessert. Dessert. All right, see you guys in a bit. Thank you.
This week in the canteen, we were joined by jazz rock trio St. Barbe. St. Barbe seamlessly blurred the lines between rock, jazz and electronic music, creating a rich and expansive sound. Following the success of their independently released debut EP in 2021, they've played in venues such as Jazz Cafe and featured in Guitar Magazine. Join us as we chat about the subtleties of thrash jazz, collaborative improvisation instead of traditional solos, and the challenge of replicating a classic Vietnamese rice bowl. Floyer, James, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the 5DV Canteen. I'm really intrigued by the name of the band, St. Barbe. Now, in my mind, it's something to do with a big beard, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it does have
Tell me where it came from,
connotations,
yeah.
doesn't it?
No, it's actually my middle name. So my full name, it sounds silly, but it's Floyer Adam St. Barbe Sydenham. And St. Barbe is one of the family tree names from...
Sounds very aristocratic.
Well, take a look at this guy, you know.
But there is a weird story. So our single we released called Telecherry. We named it on the basis that James likes Telecherry peppercorns, which is posh. I mean, that sounds
cringe, doesn't it?
But anyway,
No, but they are delicious.
They are,
They
they're
are, right?
quite
And
nice.
it's funny because when I saw the name of that song, I was like, I know that word.
Right.
Why do I know that
Yeah.
word? And they're kind of long, aren't they?
I've only had them like...
Oh, crushed.
Ground,
Yeah, they're
ground,
kind of
yeah.
like a kind of long peppercorn, I think.
What's weird is that Telecherry. Someone messaged our Instagram page and said, like, do you realise that the Telecherry was a ship that was owned by Sir John St. Barbe? And this is like, obviously we had no idea this was a thing. And yeah, it happened. It just so happens
Pure
that there was
coincidence.
pure coincidence. And
That
I
is
did
kinda
look it. I
mad.
did look it up, and there is a John St. Barbe in our family tree, but he wasn't a sir, and he wasn't quite as famous enough to own a ship.
I would stick with that story, though, because
Yeah,
it's great.
I can take that anyway. Yeah. So the band came together a couple of years ago, is that right?
Yeah, I feel like we've known each other for longer than that, but I think it became what it is now in the last like 3
years, I
4 years,
reckon,
maybe.
yeah. Most of the early stuff James sort of wrote on your own, really, and then you brought the melodies and the sort of structure, and then we sort of created an arrangement. But then recently, I think the new albums are sort of more collaborative, I think, isn't it? In terms of from the writing process, like from the beginning. I've actually written a tune, which is well, I don't know harmony. I have no idea.
Drummer, right?
Yeah.
Turns out he's quite good at it. I wouldn't have known.
It's three note voicings. I'm like, I can do that.
Yeah, whenever I saw Floyd going near the keyboard, I was like, no, Floyd, just go back to the drums.
And have you guys done much touring together?
Not hugely. We've done a fair few gigs, but we did one sort of like official tour, jazz club,
Clubs, yeah.
targeted. But I think it was
Yeah.
that tour helped us realise that maybe that's not necessarily the ideal
Yeah.
setting for us.
What is the ideal
Yeah.
setting for St. Barbe?
It's a great question. I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But where do you want to play? Where do you want to be?
Well, I think we found, like, I mean, specifically, I'm not sure, but I think we found, like, a lot of the jazz clubs didn't necessarily have, like, a big enough sound system for what we wanted, like subs and I feel like a lot of the, like, and like a Pizza Express and like the Vortex, for example, they're sort of geared up for, like, fairly sort of dynamic jazz that's like people sit down, listen, and like are intently listening to something that's jazz, I guess. But like we sort of wanted the stand-up audience of like people on their feet, like.
Yeah, I think because there's like this rock element that's been trying to sort of emerge. It's like I find it quite hard to commit to that in a sort of jazz club setting where everyone's sitting down, eating a chocolate
But it's
mousse
super
or whatever.
interesting, like the whole, like people's interpretation of jazz is completely, or modern jazz, let's call it, has really changed in the last 20 years. Actually, people had preconceptions about jazz which have been completely torn apart in the last 20 years. I was saying about the other day, we were playing as much grime and drill in their jazz set as anything else. So it feels to be a pretty open term.
Definitely, definitely. I think we're sort of referring to the jazz schooling that we got at Guildhall, which was quite, I guess, straight ahead. I don't know what
it's kind of a mixture of things, but I think that was the foundation of it, which
as in
sense.
sort of more conventional.
Which I mean is sort of, I think it's helpful and
learn the rules to then break them. So.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think having left college, I'm now thinking less about those rules. I guess they're not rules as such, but I think when I was there, I would always find myself subconsciously, I think, writing in a way to like please the jazz muso crowd. Well, people like these kind of chords or this guitarist, so I should do something like that. Not even like consciously that. I think it just found its way in. And I sort of listen back to older stuff that I've written, and there'll be these sections, and I'm just like, that's too much. I've just done that. I've like put loads of chords in there for the sake of it. And I think it's probably the theme. Everything's getting simpler and simpler,
and more instinctual, or more. What are you trying to achieve? If you're not trying to achieve that, where you've noticed that you were actually trying to make things sound a certain way or complicate things in a certain way, and you're simplifying them now, what is the guide for you now?
I think we get to a certain stage when we're writing. Yeah, you can kind of get into a bit of a flow with it, and you're just kind of, we'll get into a sort of state where we're both coming up with like just a lot of ideas, and they're not so conscious, I guess. They might be sort of, I don't know, from our like collective influences that span lots of different things, lots of different genres and artists. If we're sort of truly present in that moment writing, we can sort of dig into all of them.
And have the freedom to do that.
I think it's the same thing that a lot of performers talk about, where they're sort of in flow and they're playing or improvising, and they're not thinking about what they're doing. It's sort of coming from somewhere.
And how much of a St. Barbe set is improvised?
Less and less, actually.
Yeah, having said that,
we've still got a few tunes which are like, that have solo sections, are like predominantly improvised, but a lot of it now is preconceived, and like we've worked out grooves and bass lines that work together. I still love improvising. I think we both do to an extent, but I think we wanted the sound to be the same every time. And like, I feel like a lot of the tunes' identity comes from the groove and the bass, the drums and the bass like relationship, and then with that also intertwining with the guitar melody. And I think if it was too improvised, it wouldn't be what it was. And I think we often, like with Ed as well, like we'll give him specific bass lines, I think.
I like the idea of having like sort of a fairly written, prescribed framework, but then sort of being able to improvise within that without it being like, oh, it's a guitar solo now. A bit of that is nice, but I don't like taking long solos, loads. I get quite bored of it. And I think, bringing in, we talked about the pedal board earlier, bringing in those elements, more electronic, ambient sounds, sort of gives another dimension that I find more exciting now than like playing over some chord changes and trying to play the right notes. And can be stressful.
The sections that are improvised, we collaboratively improvise rather than it being like, right, Ed soloing and we're comping sort of thing. It is more like a lot of the outros and stuff are like sort of, right, this is an idea, but we're going to go off on one, but all together at once.
I think it comes back to what we were talking about before about trying to, like with writing, of like we're trying not to be too contrived in the way we do it. I think it's similar with like performing. We want to kind of approach those improvised bits where there's no sort of like sense of what it should be. I think as soon as I have that thought in my head, whether it's just improvising myself or writing of like, oh, this needs to be like this, and I'm referencing something else, it's quite hard to get into that space where you're really playing like authentically, I guess. So it's quite nice just approaching those sections where it's like, I could play a lot of notes or I could play nothing, or it could just be bass or it could just be drums. Trying to move towards that place, I think, is more exciting for us.
Well, you've coined a really good term for it, thrash jazz, which I don't think I've come across. I see a lot of music, but
it's one option. And I just sort of looked at, I kind of, that question like comes up a lot. Just in casual conversation, it comes up, you're in a band and someone will say, oh, what sort of stuff? And I dread that question because I'm like, I immediately start panicking. And I usually just like mumble something about jazz, rock, I even say like prog. And I go, no, don't say prog. So I was like, it'd be good if we just had our own genre that was really just punchy and short. So I just took various subgenres of metal and put them with jazz. So you've got thrash jazz, but you could do death jazz, doom jazz. There's even a subgenre of metal called Viking metal. If you're familiar with that?
Love that. That is
Viking jazz. I don't know what that would be.
Viking jazz is quite
That's jazz, but you're wearing the horns.
We all got beards.
All got beards.
I think that'd be great.
So you guys are out doing gigs now at a thrash jazz scene. Any wild stories?
Going to regret coining that term, aren't we? It's going to follow us everywhere.
I mean, yeah, not
Stories
really.
from the road.
Well, there's the one time when Ed tried to break into the cupboard and get a Quality Streets tin. That was about it.
Yeah, we were staying in an Airbnb, and that was when we got there. In each room on the pillow, there was like a Quality Street.
Oh, celebrations.
Sorry.
Let's get it right.
I'm glad you got that.
That's right, yeah.
And so we figured, okay, there must be, it wouldn't make sense for him to have them and sort of bring them in every time. He's going to keep them somewhere in the flat. And there was a locked cupboard in the hallway.
With a combination.
Yeah. And Ed spent quite a while just trying various combinations. Yeah. And we're like, statistically, there's a chance it's going to be right at some point. But no luck. No. He was really hungry after the gig.
What do you usually go for after gigs? Is there something that you all like to have together, or?
We both really like Vietnamese sort of rice bowls.
Yeah, nice.
We've tried to replicate them at home. Well, there's this really nice, this is probably product placement, but there's this really nice stall on Whitecross Street in central London called Yum Bowl, and they do a Vietnamese rice bowl. And for years I've tried to replicate the recipe just through taste. It's rice. Yeah.
It's like quite a lot of rice, actually.
It's like rice with...
It's kind of like
with roast meat, and they do chicken or pork. And then like sort of raw veg and this chicken broth on top. But it's like there's lots of elements to it that I don't even
quite... Like herbs and lemongrass?
Yeah, it's not lemongrass. It's I think it's like 5 spices the main flavour.
Is it hot?
It's quite, when you add like sriracha sauce or chili sauce, copious amounts of that.
So there's like a roast meat element,
yes,
rice element, some sort of crunchy veg,
yes,
and then some like, you said like a brothy, soupy kind of. So not a pho, but kind of, I guess like a pho would be with noodles, but I guess there must be a rice version of.
Yeah, it's drier. And the broth is just sort of a flavouring, I think.
And what would you do for like a dessert?
A cheese board, please.
Yeah.
That's fine.
That's a good one.
That's quite a strong chaser to the Yum Bowl.
I haven't really thought about how they fit together, but I haven't really got much of a sweet tooth, so I always opt for sort of cheese and crackers. But I mean,
I'm always partial to chocolate. A chocolate mousse for pudding, and that was...
Chocolate mousse is a very...
You still can't go wrong.
A good chocolate mousse, like that silkiness. I think you should definitely do that. We haven't done a chocolate mousse.
With cheese on top.
Yeah, with a bit of grated cheese. And some crackers on the side. But yeah, we're really looking forward to it. Can't wait. It's going to be a good day. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.